A few days ago, I was browsing on social media when I came across the case of Dr. Caitlin Bernard, an American doctor who performed abortion procedure on a 10-year-old rape victim. In her interview, Dr. Bernard questioned the abortion laws in the state of Ohio, which prohibits abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy, even in the case of a child rape. The result? For speaking publicly, Dr. Bernard received a letter of reprimand and a $3,000 fine. Currently, there are 12 states in America that have total legal ban on abortion. This made me think deeply about women's rights, abortion laws, and the moral dilemma between the pro-life and the pro-choice movements. This is what I would like to talk about in this video. Abortion remains one of the most controversial and emotionally charged topics today. Pro-life and pro-choice are terms used to describe opposing views on abortion, with pro-life generally referring to those who oppose abortion and believe in the right to life for the unborn, while pro-choice refer to those who support a woman's right to choose whether or not to have an abortion. And while the two views collide fiercely, each trying to show a superior morality to the other, the core of the issue is fundamentally about one critical principle: bodily autonomy versus the life of a fetus. And to be honest with you, I'm not interested in debating religious beliefs or subjective morality around abortion. Instead, I want to confront the ethical heart of the issue directly and logically. Is it your body, your choice, or is it not? Let me explain. We live in a society that universally respects bodily autonomy, so much so that even after death, your organs cannot be harvested without your explicit prior consent. Think about that carefully. Even a dead person's right to bodily integrity supersedes another person's right to life. We understand this intuitively and legally. No one can use your organs without your consent, even if doing so would save another person's life. So why, when it comes to abortion, does society suddenly question a woman's right to that same bodily autonomy? Why, in that particular case, the life of another suddenly becomes superior to bodily autonomy? Please consider this for a moment. A deceased person cannot be forced to donate organs even if withholding those organs means someone else dies. Yet in anti-abortion logic, or pro-life as you like to call it, a living woman can be compelled to use her organs, her uterus in that case, to sustain another life against her will. This isn't morality. It's a blatant ethical double standard. It reveals that, consciously or unconsciously, many people place a woman's bodily rights lower than that of a corpse. Hear that again. Many people place a woman's bodily rights lower than that of a corpse. When a woman is compelled to carry a pregnancy to term against her will, society isn't merely making a moral statement. It's forcibly commandeering her body. A forced pregnancy means forcing a woman to endure significant physiological changes, physical pain, psychological strain, and potentially severe health risks. If we wouldn't force someone to donate blood or bone marrow against their will, even if it would save a child's life, then how can we morally justify forcing a woman to maintain a pregnancy against her consent? And here, some would argue that the organ donor is choiceless, while the woman chose the pregnancy the moment she engaged in sexual activities. And by engaging in sexual activity that may result in pregnancy, that is her consent. And I have to say that this is one of the most absurd and ridiculous apologetic arguments a person can use. And I heard it so many times. One common counter-argument you will hear all the time goes something like this: the organ donor analogy isn't accurate. The organ donor never chose or consented to donate their organs. It's imposed upon them unwillingly, but a woman, by choosing to engage in sexual activity, implicitly consents to pregnancy. If you don't want pregnancy, simply abstain from sex. On the surface, this might sound reasonable to some people, but it completely collapses once you actually unpack it logically and ethically. And here is why. First, it completely ignores the reality of rape and sexual violence. In the United States alone, according to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN, a sexual assault occurs every 68 seconds. Tens of thousands of women every year become pregnant through non-consensual acts. In those cases, consent was never given, not implicitly, not explicitly. Are we genuinely willing to argue that victims of sexual assault somehow gave implicit consent simply by existing in a situation they had no control over? Secondly, it ignores the appropriate age of consent. Even in cases where two underage teens willingly engage in sexual activity, this doesn't eliminate the critical issue of maturity and informed consent. The physical capability to become pregnant does not mean that a child or a young teenager fully comprehends or consents to the complex and life-altering responsibilities of parenthood. It's not only medically dangerous, but morally indefensible to assume that a child who is not cognitively or emotionally mature enough should carry a pregnancy and become a parent because they consented to it by engaging in sexual activity. Consent isn't merely physical participation. It requires genuine understanding, maturity, and awareness of consequences, qualities that young adolescents and children simply do not possess. To force a 10-year-old child to become a mother of another child at that age, or must cross state borders to gain access to abortion, in that context, both cases are morally reprehensible. Third, and perhaps most importantly, consent does not work that way. Child or adult, to claim that anyone who engaged in sexual activity automatically consented to pregnancy is utterly wrong. Consent, by definition, must be explicitly communicated, verbally or in writing, in response to a clear, direct question. Engaging in an activity does not imply automatic consent to all potential consequences, particularly severe bodily impacts or harm. If you choose to play sports, you don't automatically consent to serious injury, and you certainly don't waive your right to medical care should something happen. You consent to the activity, understanding risks, not outcomes that strip you of your bodily autonomy. Pregnancy, likewise, is not something you consent to simply by having sex. It is a potential consequence, one that you should maintain the right to manage medically, ethically, and personally. This apologetic argument, honestly, isn't just logically flawed, it's ethically bankrupt. It tries to weaponize consent to force women into motherhood against their own will, completely disregarding the complexities and realities of the human experience. It attempts to impose consequences without genuine explicit consent and treats pregnancy as a moral punishment rather than a medical condition. So I will repeat again what I said earlier. It seems that a dead person has more bodily rights than a living woman. Clarifying this debate is essential. Advocating bodily autonomy isn't promoting abortion. It's advocating personal sovereignty. Get that straight. A woman, like any human being, has the fundamental right to decide what happens to her body. Whether you personally would choose abortion or not is entirely irrelevant to whether another woman should legally be forced to remain pregnant. To wrap up this video, let's be brutally honest here for a moment. If you're truly going to label yourselves pro-life, then stop the hypocrisy and call for compulsory organ donation as well. If you genuinely value life above personal choice and bodily autonomy, be consistent. Demand laws forcing everyone, men included, to give up their organs to save lives. But you won't, because your stance isn't really about life. It's about controlling women, dictating morality and imposing your beliefs on others. If all you care about is denying women the right to abortion, you're not pro-life. You're anti-abortion, anti-women, and anti-human rights. So here is a call to action. Now that we already have 12 states with total legal ban on abortion, if more states try to strip women of their bodily autonomy under the guise of protecting life, then let's hold them accountable. Push your legislators to apply the same standards to everyone. Make organ donation compulsory and see how quickly they backtrack their so-called moral stance. If lawmakers want to play the dangerous game of forcing pregnancy and parenthood on women, let's force them to confront their hypocrisy head on. Enough double standards. If bodily autonomy is negotiable for women, make it negotiable for everyone, or drop the charade once and for all.